begin.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to my show. I'm Dr. Lott from Acupuncturist My Life. Now over the past 2 weeks, I've received several calls, emails, chat requests, and so forth, with huge concern as to the differences between both the flu virus and COVID-19. Now before I dive into this discussion, I'd like to recommend that you go to www.acupuncturistmylife.com and subscribe to our newsletter to learn more about acupuncture and Chinese medicine and how you can benefit from both of them. Now back to the discussion at hand. Now some of the individuals who've sent me emails and chat requests had stated they knew someone who'd been recently diagnosed with the coronavirus and some who'd had, let's say, cold and flu symptoms, but felt it may have been COVID-19 until they were assessed by their primary care physician as to otherwise. Now, more and more people these days are presenting with symptoms of, based on self-diagnosis, the flu or the coronavirus, and are extremely nervous in light of the present upsurge here in the United States. This is why in most of my episodes, if you have any questions regarding the subject of discussion or some other pathology I may not be discussing at the moment, please review some of my earlier episodes to see if any of them may answer some of the questions you may have, or you can simply ask in the comment section below as I read all of my comments and I would respond as best as I can. Now, to quell some of the concerns you guys may have as to the differences between these two viruses, I'm going to go over seven differences in which I'm aware of and how acupuncture may help. But I will say, if you were to feel at any point you may have been infected with either of these viruses, please contact your primary care physician as soon as possible. Now, when it comes to the differences between both the flu and the coronavirus, number 7 is speed of transmission. You see, the flu virus has a shorter incubation period, that being the time from infection to actual appearance of symptoms, and also a shorter serial interval, which is the time between successive cases, than the coronavirus. Now, the serial interval for the coronavirus is usually between 5 to 6 days, whereas for the flu virus, the serial interval is generally around 3 days, which means the flu can spread faster than the coronavirus. For an acupuncturist such as myself, an invasion of an exterior pathogenic factor would be a sign of a temporary and relative imbalance between the pathogen and the body's protective chi. This usually occurs because the body's chi is either temporarily weak or the pathogenic factor is super strong. Now, this is why it's strongly recommended that you see your acupuncturist for general wellness visits periodically. Now, number 6 is the driver of transmission. When it comes to the flu virus, transmission usually occurs during the pre-symptomatic to symptomatic phase, which is usually 3 to 5 days. While in contrast to that, people with COVID-19 can shed the virus within 24 to 48 hours prior to the onset of symptoms, although this is not a major driver of transmission for COVID-19. Now, number 5 has to do with the rate of secondary infections as generated from one infected individual. Now, when it comes to the coronavirus, it's understood that this rate is somewhere between 2 to 2.5, which is higher than that of the flu. Whereas when it comes to influenza, it's difficult to make a comparison due to context and time specificity. Now, number 4 is pretty interesting because of the individuals who contacted me were parents who were concerned as to if their children were to become infected, how would they be able to determine between the two, since understanding that COVID-19 affects children different from adults. First and foremost, if you feel that your child may have contracted a virus, take them to see their pediatrician immediately, because children can be significant drivers of the flu within their community. Whereas initial data suggests that children are less affected than adults when it comes to COVID-19. Now, number 3 has to do with the range of symptoms between the two viruses, which are actually similar, although the fraction with severe disease between the two appear to be somewhat different. The fraction of severe infection for the flu virus, although it can be severe, is minimal in comparison to COVID-19. Now, data shows that 80% of COVID-19 infections tend to be mild or asymptomatic, and upwards of 15% can be severe, whereas somewhere in the ballpark of 5% tend to be critical and require ventilation. Now, number two is those that are more at risk for severe cases of the flu virus tend to be children, pregnant women, and elderly, as well as those with underlying medical conditions. And let me not forget, those whose immune systems are suppressed, or should I say compromised, due to potentially a drug regimen they've been placed on by their doctor, or long-term illness, whether it be viral or autoimmune. Now, when it comes to the coronavirus, the ones who tend to be more severely impacted by this virus are the elderly and those with underlying conditions. Now, before I get into number one, let's take a quick look at things from an acupuncture perspective. Now, when it comes to both viruses, I have to first determine if it's a wind-heat pathogen, which in the case is influenza, or if it's a warm disease pathogen, such as COVID-19. Now, in its initial stages, it's hard to determine whether the pathogen is either wind-heat or warm disease. So my approach would be to treat each case according to the principle of treatment of exterior diseases. Now let's look at the number one difference between the two viruses, and that's mortality. Now, mortality for the coronavirus appears higher than that for the flu virus, which is something to be concerned about due to the fact that COVID-19 is still a novel virus. So if you feel that you may be expressing symptoms of either virus, please contact your primary care physician immediately, and don't forget to pay your acupuncturist a visit as well. Those are the 7 differences between the flu virus and COVID-19 that I'm aware of. Now, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to learn more about acupuncture, as well as download the Acupuncture is My Life app from the Google Play Store. And until next time, acupuncture is my life. What's yours?